I will now officially open our June Council meeting. And firstly, may I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we meet on this evening, the Wiradjuri people, and pay my respects to their eldest, past, present and emerging. For the people in the gallery and that have been here since we started, I'd like to let you know that these meetings are live streamed, so any conversations that I had in this room will be picked up by the microphones and are streamed live to our audience. So I mention that just so everyone is well aware of the circumstances of what may be said in this meeting. For those also in the gallery, as I said earlier, if there was an emergency and we had to leave the building, the process is through the door you entered into, out to the right, onto the road, and await further instructions. Next, any apologies? Have we received any apologies? I had word that Councillor Manchester is travelling and hopes to make attendance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
If not, it'll be a formal apology. I just looked, Mr Patterson just walked in the door. Okay, so next thing is declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors, have we filled them out if we have any? Hand them in. Thank you. I'd actually want to be upstanding, please, while we do the sympathy expressions. Could we please have a moment's silence to express our sympathy on the passing of Shirley Rolls, James Charlesworth, Patricia Knott, Noya Tierney, Cecil Hennock, Amy Troff, Robert Nolan, Margaret Booker, Kathleen Sims, Donald Wheeler, Harley Thompson, Bronwyn Gruber, William Burgess, Leslie Cameron, Bernard Montague, Ian Sheridan, Maxwell Donahue, Marion Earl, James Calvert and Valda Terry. Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda is the confirmation of the minutes. The meeting held in May, 22nd of May. The recommendation is there, councillors.
Happy to move, Mr Mayor.
Move Councillor Tuckman, thank you. Seconded Councillor Rolls. All those in favour? Also, councillors, I will remind councillors that votes on all issues are recorded nowadays, so I please need to have you indicate your vote when we vote. The next item is item 19142, the Emergency Service Levy 2019. It's a report that I put up due to actions of other councils and the general local government areas because of this increased cost that's been added to local government's burden. So the report's there, councillors, and the recommendation is there for you to moved. Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Horton, was it? Yes. Thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Again, thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 19. 143 is the Forsythe Development Update, and just for a brief up-to-date for Mr Patterson, who just walked in the room, your letter was read in full in the public forum, which is now held outside of council meetings due to new policy changes. It was read to everyone and councillors here. And what's in front of councils now is pretty straightforward. Receive a report from the General Manager about the status of this development, and that this report be provided at our next council meeting. And there's a bit of background information there, councillor. So someone like to move? Councillor Horton, thank you. Seconded Councillor O'Connor. Pardon, Councillor Seymour? What would your amendment be, Councillor Stadmiller?
That a resident of Forsythe Avenue be invited to attend and take part in this process.
Well, I might tend to say that the amendment is probably unnecessary, given that the letter I just read out from Mr Patterson indicates that they will meet with council and they've asked for a councillor to be present, and I'm pretty sure that will happen as well, so I'm pretty sure that's been covered off. But I had a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that's in front of us. I'll put that recommendation.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to either move an amendment to it or open it for discussion, noting that the recommendation is that Council receive a report from the General Manager about the status of this development. I think that grossly misses the issues that are going on here. I've got numerous photos of what I would regard, and I say that advisedly, as breaches of the conditions of consent. So a recommendation that receives a report about the status of development is going to give us a report about the status of development, not the status of the issues that have occurred throughout this development.
I'd like to try to clarify something for all councillors before we get too much further into this, Council Plenary. The reason that this is in front of us now is because the Mayor asked for a report on two development matters. One is enclosed. I anticipated this one being enclosed with a full report in the same manner. When the business paper came out, it's been presented like this. As I said, it reads pretty straightforward. It's about a report being given at the next meeting, and what I fully intended and had asked the General Manager and staff to provide is a full and detailed report on the Forsythe Avenue matter from day one. I've spoke to the proponents, I've spoke to Mr Patterson and his wife in regard to this matter. I said that's what I would do, that's what I've asked for, and the intent of this in front of us now means you're correct, not a lot. What it does mean that this report will come to council at our next council meeting in full for everyone to talk about and look at and digest and work out the remedies from there. But this is merely a one-pager, as you say, doesn't say a lot, but it's not to be dealt with tonight. It's about bringing a report to our July meeting.
Well, can I add a point C to the recommendation that all correspondence received and sent out be included in the report, because and including the objections, starting with the objections at the beginning, when correspondence has been received, what response they've received, please, because from what I can see, there hasn't been a lot of response.
Okay, we'll just make sure we get that point C typed and on the board so everyone can see it, then I'll ask the mover and the seconder if they're happy for that to be put there.
Through the Chair, there is considerable correspondence and photographs and text in relation to this matter that may delay the report. So it would be helpful if you could be a little briefer or a little bit narrower in the scope of that.
I actually think Council needs the full detail of what's gone on here, because the list of objections are many, and I've got very clear photos here, and I know we're not going into it tonight, of silt running down the road. And I'm also aware of a $30,000 EPA fine imposed on constructors of WestConnex for exactly the same breach. So unless we have full correspondence here, we're not going to get to the heart of the problem.
Thank you.
Just through the Chair, I'm just explaining that that correspondence is quite broad, is that the parties have corresponded in many forms, text by photographs, by text, correspondence by formal letters, emails, etc. So the texts are harder to actually retrieve out of systems than formal correspondence and emails.
I'll narrow it to all email and notations of phone conversations and or meetings.
question to the General Manager, through you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Armstrong.
Earlier this year, the General Manager had advised Council that all correspondence is registered in the computer system. Surely this is a matter of simply producing a report and identifying those objects and then retrieving them. When it comes to texts, are texts recorded in the correspondence system, or are they not recorded?
Through the Chair, good practice would be that they are, and certainly in relation to compliance requests, they should be recorded on the file with the detail. You're just asking for a lot of documentation.
You've mentioned good practice. Does Council observe good practice in this case, or bad practice?
Through the Chair, I can say that from a compliance perspective that the detail would be there in relation to the recording of texts that might be sent to 11 councillors. I cannot account for the fact that councillors are recording or registering all their documentation with me.
But all of the staff
Yes.
have. I think if Councillor...
through the Chair, the compliance should be there.
If Councillor Flannery is happy to have all council correspondence there rather than correspondence directed to councillors that may not be registered, then I can't see any reason why they shouldn't be included too.
No, I would agree. That's a reasonable proposition.
I have a list of all the council correspondence.
Okay, so if we give our penciler a moment to get that on the board for all councillors to see, that amendment. Again, the mover and the second.
Would be all council correspondence received and sent out regarding this development.
Received and sent.
Will that include the objections from the staff?
My understanding it would.
Through the Chair, if you're looking at the development from day one, that will include a lot of information.
Mr Mayor, am I able to make comment in regards to the proposed amendment? I'm just wondering whether what we are looking for is a full report on the issues of non-compliance, of complaint of non-compliance, and the response of council regarding those issues.
My understanding would be, and I'll pass on to Councillor Flannery who moved the amendment, that would be the basis of his question. Councillor Flannery.
Yes, that's correct. That's the basis of what point C is trying to get at. But it's also about understanding what's going on here and trying to get better business practice by council. So both sides.
Thank you.
Just through the Chair, you're quite right in highlighting the fact that there are a number of ways to correspond with council in a number of contexts since day one. I'm just reiterating that. Since day one will be the DA application, will be the correspondence, will be the submissions, will be compliance issues, will be general emails in relation to the development, will be complaints, will be issues, will be meetings, will be minutes. So they are quite broad in this regard.
Quite frankly, we probably won't get it for another 6 months.
Well, we can do it if it's the mover and the seconder is happy for that point C to be there, and we can move with staff to work as efficiently as they can to provide that information to council. The fact that it may take 2 months as opposed to a month, in the scheme of the picture, isn't going to change anything. What's done is done and can't be undone. I think the underlying thoughts behind this is so that full council have full awareness of what happened while this process was being undertaken, and as Councillor Flannery just mentioned, to improve and help us to do things better in the future, let's say that way. So if the mover and the seconder are happy with that point C on the board, they are, then I'll put the recommendations on the board. All those in favour? Again, it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 19144 is a report that was being provided by the General Manager as the Mayor did not attend the Regional Joint Organisation Board meeting as he had the man flu at that time. Considerable bad case of the man flu. So the report's there from the Joint Organisation meeting.
Sorry.
I seem to get it worse than everyone else, I don't know. So if there's any questions in regard to that, I'm sure the General Manager will be happy to answer them. Otherwise, the report is there to receive and note. Move Councillor Horton. Second to Councillor Flannery, thank you. All those in favour? Again. So, Bert, thank you, councillors. Item 19145 is the Memorandum of Understanding with our sister city LANZHOU and the Municipal People's Government. The report is there, councillors, the draft, the Memorandum of Understanding and the proclamation is there for you to look at. Any recommendation is there. I'm in your hands, councillors. Move Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour? Again, thank you. Councillor Stadmiller's voted against endorsing the Memorandum of Understanding with our LANZHOU Municipal Council and acknowledging that they will be jointly signed as part of the delegation. Please note Councillor Stadmiller's in the negative there, thank you. Item 19146 is a list of mayoral engagements. Receive and note the Mayor's engagements. I think that that's the bulk of them. I won't go time-consuming speaking on anything that's there, but happy to take questions from anyone in regard to any matter that's there. So, could I have someone move that we receive and note that Mayor's report? Thanks, Councillor Horton. Seconded, Councillor Rolls. Thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. That's unanimous. 19147, Councillors' reports. There's a report there from Councillor Horton, whose duties were there, and I think that's the only one. This is there? Yep. Okay. So that's just to note Councillor Horton's report, which no doubt depleted for the fact he's been away for a while. Item 19148. Item 19148. Sorry? We will. We'll go around the table for other councillors' reports before I go on to 19148. I'll start with Councillor Horton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. My activity report's in the June business paper.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Attended the National Volunteers Week thank you function on behalf of Council Young. Attended the Councillor workshop for the Joint Use Library facility on the 3rd of the 6th. The 4th of the 6th, the LEP Working Committee workshop. 11th of the 6th, LEP Working Committee meeting. Also on the 11th of the 6th, the Joint Use Library Steering Committee meeting. 12th of the 6th, I attended the Rye Park Community meeting. And I'd like to advise those councillors that didn't attend that it was an excellent meeting, and the community out there were very appreciative of council visiting Rye Park and discussing issues with them. Also conduct a number of constituent interviews and meetings as mentioned.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rolls.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I attended the RDSAI dinner at Clifton and also the hub meeting, the Hilltops hub, the library workshops, as Councillor Armstrong recorded, and also the LEP workshops. Went to the guide induction, which was a delight, and as well as that, I was the council representative at the LGA National Conference in Canberra from the 16th to the 19th of this month, to which I will give a report next month.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls. Councillor Stadmiller.
I don't have a report to lodge at this stage. I was working away for a brief period as well, which impacted that, but probably rather lazy on the meeting side of things this month, to be brutally honest.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Attended the Council Library Workshop, the Library Steering Committee meeting, and also the Regional Development Dinner, which Councillor Rolls attended, and actually I commend her article in the press in relation to conversations she had at that dinner about culture being the driver in regional communities, and I think the library is a fantastic thing, and it's the first step, I hope, of many things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Tuckerman.
Meetings as minuted, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Copperbella CCC meeting in Bynalong on the 23rd of May. The opening of the Murrumburra Harden Camera Club exhibition. On the 5th of June, I went to a CSIRO dinner, which was the first of its kind, held because of the new facility at Bulla, and it was for the farming systems research teams across Australia. So they came from Western Australia, Victoria, South Australia. It was fantastic. As a scientist, I loved hearing just the innovative things they're working on with cropping, particularly with cropping and with animal care. That was a real bonus, and I've asked that when they get, chairs and more things on the ground at Boorowa, that we be invited as councillors and council staff to actually go and see the facility, because it was just a really very, very exciting dinner. Then last night I went to the Harden Country Club event to meet the new General Manager for the new development, so that was interesting as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Walker.
Meetings as minuted, and I have a report on as next item on one of those, which is the Roads Conference. But also I'd like to, if I may, recognise the cadets, and I sent an email to councillors earlier, but to recognise Cadet Major Philip Mitchell and the Young Cadet Unit for being recognised by the Army through their newspaper for outstanding contribution to the community on Anzac Day, and proudly demonstrating cadet values and an involvement with the community. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The RDA dinner, as attended by the Mayor, Councillor Wallace and Councillor Rolls, joint use library meeting, LEP workshop, something else I attended, 2 by HRDC LEP evenings, which were fantastic, very informative for the local community, and great turn up from the local Harden community to go through the draft working papers, so that's good to see. I'd also like to recognise in particular Bernie Minogue, who's on our obituary list. Bernie was a stalwart of the Harden community, probably one of those quiet people who went around doing jobs and no one really noticed what he did, but for many years he was responsible for cartage of livestock on behalf of the Harden High School to and from the show. They achieved many awards over the years and hopefully will continue to do so, but Bernie was one of those people who quietly went about helping them ferry their livestock to and fro without any charge, and there's many people like him in the community, but I'd just like to recognise him.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flannery. Someone like to move those reports be accepted, please? Councillor O'Connor, seconded Councillor Horton. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 19148, New South Wales Local Roads Congress, 3rd of June. Councillor Walker was a councillor who went with staff. The report and the recommendation is there, councillors, to receive and note the report.
Can I add to that?
Councillor Walker.
Another item. I'll move it, and I'll also move a B, that the report
I'll second.
We report back to the viability of implementing a traineeship program with particular reference to technical trades and professions. Now that is also backed up in the latest local government newspaper I should say, where it says that there's an acute shortage of skilled workers within, and it mentions engineers, urban and town planners and building surveyors, and encourages all councils to run a training program to build the numbers up in most professions.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. We had a mover and a seconder. Is the dot point B on the board?
Sorry, just for the record. Excuse me, Councillor Walker. Got a report back to. Thank you so much.
Got it. Okay.
Mr Mayor, a question to Councillor Walker.
Yeah.
Councillor Armstrong.
I note that Minister Toole has announced the state is going to take over up to 15,000 kilometres of regional road network. Did they actually define what take over meant? Is it going to assume absolute responsibility?
There's very limited in what was told to councillors and to the engineers, and perhaps our director might assist me with that.
Through you, Mr Mayor. It basically refers to our regional roads. They're the roads that are part owned by council but part funded in terms of maintenance by the state government. My expectation is that the RMS will, or the state government will, transfer some of those to state roads and potentially not fund the other roads. That will have an impact to council in terms of ongoing financial assistance grants and our road funding generally. But there's certainly been no detail on that from the state government in terms of what roads they wish to take over, how they may do that, what conditions they'll put around that.
Question, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Tuckerman? Sorry, Councillor O'Connor. Look straight through the corner, look straight at Councillor Tuckerman.
No, that's fine. Just clarification on that point, that second point. Who implements the traineeship program?
Well, that would be in the report, I would suggest.
As in council, or...?
Yeah.
That council implements a traineeship program.
Through you, Mr Mayor. That's what we're being encouraged by the various local government, New South Wales and the other various bodies, yes.
Yeah.
We got it there? On the board?
In a limited form.
Okay, we've got...
Mr Mayor, look, I'd like to thank Councillor Walker for his report. I think it's very good analysis of what went on. I'd also like to just follow up on the recognition that there's a lack of skilled people, and I guess it's noting in this report engineers in rural areas, and I strongly support Part B. I think for many years Harden Council were the beneficiaries of an engineer, Frank Cullen, who we have to thank for our excellent roads in the former Harden Shire, and I mean that in sincerity. He was known as a very good engineer who took a practical approach to things but built things to last, Albury Street being one of them. I think in 30 years from the pool here to the bridge at the Mongrel, it's been ripped up once, and that gets a lot of traffic through it. It's the most used road in the Hilltops Shire, and it's been ripped up once, and that was because Frank Cullen made sure it was built properly. He was responsible for many of the bridges in the former Harden Shire. I strongly support us following what was a very successful time of having skilled people on staff, particularly engineers and young engineers. I look forward to the state government taking over the weeds along the roadsides also of the 1,500 kilometres they're going to take over.
Thank you for that, Councillor Flannery. So we've got a mover and seconder, and Councillor Tucker.
Can I just seek clarification in regards to point B? The Director just said that we do have a traineeship program in a limited form currently, so I'm just wondering whether that statement of viability of implementing a traineeship program actually... Or would it be reporting on the traineeship program currently conducted by Council, and perhaps a report in regards to what a better way of implementing the shortfall that is currently recognised within the trades and professions? So basically what I'm saying, it's saying, talking about implementing one when we already have one.
Just improving or evaluating the current program.
Evaluating might be a better word. Our traineeships are more focused at...
Council, we're digressing around the point here. We've got an amendment that was moved by Councillor Walker, and he wanted to put a dot point B in an amendment. Is the amendment on the board behind me satisfactory to the mover and the seconder? If it's double meaning, do we need to understand it before we vote on it?
Can I, Mr Mayor, through you, a question for the General Manager. The current traineeship programs, if we have them, focus more at certificate level courses as opposed to, I believe Councillor Walker is looking at professions.
Through the Chair, no. Our cadetships, we have traineeship, they are called traineeship, but there's a range of traineeships, including cadetship, which includes tertiary education of employees. The Canberra Regional Joint Organisation is also discussing the same matter, because it's not an issue peculiar to Hilltops. It is a significant issue in the sector, but it's a growing significant issue in the sector due to Snowy 2.0 and Erythropolis.
Just reading the dot point B there that I read, I would imagine that would probably cover what we need to do and bring the report back to a later meeting.
Traineeship program.
Just while we're getting that correct, Mr Mayor, I'm sure...
Councillor Fennery, with a long night.
I think it's lost its meaning there.
There's a point in here, the report, that you should note. I refer to Council. The Congress also calls for identification funding to determine the first key and last mile pinch points.
Councillor Flannery, you were excited to know that I was at a meeting yesterday with RMS in regard to that very matter, Farmgate matters, and the B-double issues and all those types of things we spoke about, and yeah, we're very aware of what needs to be done. Okay, how are we going with this dot point B on the board? The mover's not happy with his amendment?
That's lost its impact somehow. I think we need a bit more than a report back with the thought in mind of giving up to 10% in training at any one time, and that's university and day courses.
My take on this, Councillor, is that the sentiment is good, and I agree with the sentiment. I just don't know if we can get a dot point B there tonight to be clear to everyone just what we're asking for. Given that we have some traineeships underway, I think the idea of a report coming back to Council on just what we have in place and then proposing how we might boost that and make it better would be a good outcome for everyone at this stage. I would like to think.
Mr Mayor, may I suggest perhaps staff provide Council with an improvement plan to meet the needs of our professional and gaps or something? Let's get a recommendation from staff as to how we proceed with improving.
That's would be the purpose of the report coming back to Council, yep?
Yep, through the Chair, is the report coming back to Council can certainly talk about what is our current program and what are we actually delivering. It can talk about the needs of the organisation, the gaps in relation to our traineeship program, because we indeed have those as well. Whilst we're training people, we certainly have the need to train more, and it may be beneficial to Council to understand just how many engineers we might need. And again, after that report, you may like to target a particular number, and we can look at how we might go about that.
It's a nationwide problem.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So have we got a dot point B on the board that I can get a vote on? We have. The mover and the second are happy with their amendment on dot point B?
Yes.
Thank you. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. Item 19.149. Breaches of Local Government Act. Move Councillor Horton. Before we do that, Councillor Horton, this comes down to a breakdown of an A and a B. The first person I'd reflect to is Councillor Stadmiller.
No thanks.
Councillor Stadmiller has indicated that he is not going to apologise, so this recommendation would read that Council dot point B acknowledge that if an apology should not occur, then this lack of action would be referred to the Office of Local Government for further consideration. Is that what you're moving, Councillor Horton? Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Flannery. Thank you. All those in favour? Again? Could it be noted that Councillor Stadmiller and Councillor... You're voting for or against Councillor Stadmiller? Against, hard to tell. Councillor Stadmiller, Councillor Walker, both in the negative. Thank you. Next item is item 1950, General Manager's annual leave cover for July 2019. Councillors, the report.
Question, Mr Mayor?
Question, Councillor Stadmiller.
Question for the Director, if he can answer it. I don't know Mr Osland that well, either does the general public. I was just wondering if he would be happy to give us some background on his experience as well.
I don't think that your question is relevant at any stage, let alone in a council meeting in regard to this matter that's in front of us, Councillor, so I won't ask the Director to answer that question. I will ask for a mover and a seconder, if they like, of the item 19.150. Councillor Rolls, move that. Seconded Councillor Wallace, thank you. Any questions, debate? I'll put that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again? Please note that Councillor Stadmiller's in the negative again. Thank you.
Question, should some items come forward at this point?
What item were you referring to, Councillor?
The public forum.
Forum.
Do you want to bring the public forum items forward? Or?
Let's just explain this once again. Public forum is not part of our council meeting anymore. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
You clear? All clear?
Thank you, Ben.
Let's proceed. Item 19151, talking about drafts and codes, draft code of conduct procedures. Councillors, it's there in front of you and the recommendations there. Moved Councillor O'Connor, seconded Councillor Wallace, thank you. All those in favour? Again? Please note against in the negative is Councillor Stadmiller and Councillor Flannery, thank you. Item 19, did I jump one? I'm not knowing it. Item 19152, the adoption of Hilltops Council 2019-20 operational plan, budget, revenue policy, fees and charges. It's there in front of you, councillors, and the recommendations there. Moved Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Armstrong.
Mr Mayor, just a few clarifications on the changes. It notes in the report that there's going to be a change to the farmland, and I can't find the relevant item now, but it's a change on the ad valorem rate, is that correct? I think it was... Could the Director please advise us on the actual changes? It is in a list here somewhere.
Through the Chair, I just might defer to my finance.
You'll need to use the mayor.
Oh, sorry, can you hear me? Thank you.
You'll need to use the mayor.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The changes were related to the farmland rates for Burua and Young. So in other words, this is related to properties that are rated, that are within the Burua, area and rated on the Young rate, so it needs to be exactly the same as the Young farmland rate. So it's now 460 minimum rate plus minimum amount plus 0.43197 cents in the dollar, which is exactly the same as the farmland rate in Young. The other was related to the Young Harden rate, and once again that's properties that are in Young and choose to so they're boundary property and they're electing to be rated on Harden rates, so that rate has to be exactly the same as the Harden farmland rate, which is a minimum of a base amount of $684.37 and an ad valorem of 0.285775 cents in the dollar. So that adjustment was to bring those amounts into exactly the same as the farmland rates in those respective areas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, councillors, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again? Councillor Stadmiller? Councillor Stadmiller, was that in the for?
Against. I wasn't saying it was against.
Is negative to the adoption of our budget. Please note that. Thank you. The next item I get to is item 19153, Joint Use Library and Community Facility. Councillors, the recommendations there, the reports are there. Moved Councillor...
I'll second that.
O'Connor, seconded Councillor Horton.
Mr Mayor...
To speak, would the mover like to speak?
I'll reserve my right till the end.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to speak against the recommendation?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to speak against it to the extent that I believe more than a coffee, and it might seem trivial, but more than a coffee bar needs to be provided. If we're expecting this to be a community library and I guess senior citizens to be using it, they need more than a coffee bar. And to me it's grossly inadequate. We're asking for the community to be moved from a kilometre up from the main street, 800 metres, 500 metres if you want to catch a crow, but it is grossly inadequate and needs to go back to the planners before this is adopted by council. I also don't see the need for points A and B. They've been endorsed by council. That sits as it is.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Would you like to speak for?
Yes,
Councillor...
Mr Mayor, I'd like to speak for.
Councillor Horton.
There have been many meetings over the last 18 months since the inception of Hilltops, and I've attended all of those meetings with the exception of one. And from where I sit, the bottom line is this is a great concept. It's nothing new. It's new to Australia perhaps, but it's in Europe. It's been in the United States for a long time. One of the big benefits that we haven't heard touched on tonight is that during school holidays, children can't use the libraries. They will be open all through the holidays once this concept happens. Some of the other points, the Hilltops Council is responsible for tops of 6.5 million. 3 million of that has already been given to us or by grants from the New South Wales government, and 2 million came out of the amalgamation funding, as did money come out for Harden and Borwa. So the tops that we have to put in as a Hilltops Council now is 1.5 million. I don't know what it'll cost, but bandaged around them in figures around 32 million. It'll probably cost more than that with inflation costs. You can probably look at 35 or 36 million, of which we're putting in $1.5 million. It's not encroaching on Carrington Park, which was a big concern, and I should point out that the majority of residents are in favour. And I think we often forget that school children are residents, and the school captain from the school there tonight made that very clear. Hennessy College itself is just across the road. They're in favour, and of course the public school, North Public School. So we haven't talked about we talk about residents, we think of old people only. There are hundreds, there are thousands of children that will use that facility. And the libraries of Harden and Borwa will benefit because they'll be able to tap into these facilities, and that will benefit the residents throughout the Hilltops, in my view. It's aesthetically pleasing. People were condemning that the new library would be detrimental to the beautiful courthouse, and I must say the courthouse, in my view, is the most beautiful building in the Hilltops. And what did spoil it, and still does if you have a look, those old flat prefabs in the school grounds. Dreadful. They'll be gone, and we'll have a beautiful new library, aesthetically pleasing. If you look at the architects have done a great job, in my view, with the columns they've instilled into their plans, which blend in well with the courthouse. It'll look beautiful. As I said, it's a state of the art. It's a once only opportunity for the Hilltops, once in a lifetime, to get a beautiful facility that's proved beneficial and advantageous around the world, in Europe and the States. And this will help to put Hilltops on the map. So I'm 100% in favour, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Do any speakers against the recommendation?
I'm against the recommendation in that I think I'm the first to advocate a modern facility, and everyone know that we need a brand new library in town. There's no argument about that, and everyone would appreciate that. But I'm also a strong advocate and agree with the government guidelines that we commit to a community consultation process, and until that is carried out, I cannot be in agreement in any way. It is a community asset, and so the community should have an input into it. It may be the best in Australia, but until the community is involved, I won't support it. I object that the existing proposal and recommendations lacks due process and due diligence by not going through those certain procedures and consulting with the community. We have not seek the community requirements or expectations. We did not receive a community input or professional advice on the existing building. Sorry, we have on the existing building, but not on the existing site. So we don't know whether the existing site would have served the same purpose. It probably won't, but the fact is we haven't received a report or any study on it. We have not followed the library guidelines when it comes to community access and community transport. Needs to be near public transport facilities and near shopping and near the town proper. I believe we've submitted to political pressure and not proper professional planning. We have signed a memorandum of understanding before the steering committee was set up, so it was virtually a done deal without consulting with the community. And the point about it being the first in Australia is incorrect. In some areas, they've already moved into school facilities and moved back out and built their own independent libraries. So I reject and I know where my family lived in Salem, Victoria, was one such case where they moved the library to a joint facility, and now they're now back out on the as an independent library and gallery. So I'll be voting against the facility on the grounds of due process has not been carried out and the community has not been consulted, even though, and to come in and say that everything's confidential for a community facility just doesn't make sense. It defies all guidelines.
Thank you very much for your input, Councillor Walker. It's much appreciated. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I wish to speak for this. I tend to agree with Councillor Flannery. Some of this stuff's been covered before, but in any event, I'll recap. I have to say most of what Councillor Walker just said is completely fallacious. I've never seen a program with more community consultation than this. I've never seen a program and a project with more due process than this. To make those allegations is just completely false and incorrect. And then to say that we've been under political pressure to proceed and there hasn't been a proper planning process, it's like living in some alternate universe to say these things. It's just not true. I've been a strong advocate for this new library since 2014 when as chair of the Arts Committee for Performing Young Council. We commissioned the Cultural Master Plan. It saw the need for a library, and since that time I've advocated for it and advocated very strongly. I think this is an excellent project, and I will support the motion. I do have some riders because the Cultural Master Plan also indicates that certain elements should be part of that library, and at this point the schematic design does not include those. My understanding is that the New Schools Infrastructure New South Wales and the architects are looking at further items that were raised in that report, and I hope those changes are made. But in terms of schematics, and I note on the schematic design that they are only schematic and can be changed, so on that basis I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Anyone else to speak against? A question? A question, Councillor Armstrong.
Mr Mayor, as I read the report, the comments, Councillor Walker's made a comment, I'll paraphrase him, it's a done deal. This would appear as though there is no deal done until such times as Council signs off in the future with the project deed and lease. So this really is Council saying, yes, we want to be part of it, but we haven't got any details of exactly how it's going to function and agreed with those details of how it's going to function. Is it essentially the situation that we're in now?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Armstrong. That's correct. This is the next stage in the development of the joint use library facility with Hilltops Council and the community and Young High School. This is the step of consenting to the schematics to go ahead, and as Councillor Wallace pointed out, there still can be changes there. It is another step in the process. The final step in the process will be when the deed and the lease arrangement is presented to Council. Hopefully that can be done next month. As stated in this recommendation, there's been a negotiation had and arrangement in place for the operational costs for the first 4 years of this facility. There's been some questions and some commentary and misleading commentary in some media outlets today in regard to that fact, but I'll leave that there because the people are well aware that that number came about by negotiation because currently the ongoing operating costs of the Young Library are in excess of $60,000. With the arrangement in place for the next 4 years, it's $70,000 for a brand new facility which is much larger. I've only heard one person say that it wasn't a good result. So, but in regard to the deed and the lease, that's the first 4 years. the process of negotiating with Schools Infrastructure New South Wales at the moment, with myself and Council, is the ongoing cost after the 4th year. When we get to the 5th year and onwards, and there's been correspondence sent by Hilltops Council stating a number and stating that we would look at starting at that number, and any increases from year to year from that would be capped at our rate capping capacity, because that's the limited ability we have to raise extra funds. If our rate cap is 2.5%, that's all we can raise, extra revenue. We can't go above that. So those negotiations are ongoing. The final legal terminology that will be used in the deed and the lease is 85% there. Just working out the finer points of that, which the legal people are doing, which is way above my pay rate. And all that documentation, hopefully, in the next few weeks, the first week of July, I'll lead the second week of July, will be provided to Council and to the Steering Committee, what can be provided. And the final decision that Council is 100% in on this is when we agreed to sign the deed and the lease arrangement. So yes, this is just another step in the process of getting to the end. The final step is signing the deed and the lease that Council is all in agreement that we can live with, and will be beneficial for our communities for the next 40 or 50 years. In regard, and I wasn't going to comment, but I will now that it was brought up, in regard to matters of confidentiality, I spoke at length at the last couple of meetings and at the Steering Committee meeting. Some people you have to explain the meaning of the word confidential, but for this purpose I will regard to information and documents that arrive on my table or Council's table that are marked confidential, whether it be from the Department of Education or any other government department. When they land on our table marked confidential, that is how they are to be treated. I explained at the last Steering Committee, Hilltops Council and myself don't make those documents confidential. They arrive confidential, with confidential written all over them. So we are bound by ethical standards in the affirmation we made when we became councillors to treat that information as confidential. I didn't make it confidential, but I will do everything in my effort to have it remain confidential until such time it is to be released. That's the last I'm saying on that matter. But to answer your question, Councillor Armstrong, yes, this is another step in the process, and we have one more step to go after this.
Mr Mayor, noting Councillor Wallace's comments and also with respect to my concerns, I'd like to move an amendment to the recommendation so that C would read, receive and note the schematic building design and request further input.
Through the Chair, the process requires actually endorsement of the schematic design as per the heads of agreement.
We had this at the last Steering Committee meeting, and Councillor Flannery attended that meeting, was there, and we spoke about this, would be coming to this meeting to endorse those schematics. By endorsing those schematics doesn't mean that there can't be minor change, but what it's telling you, there won't be large-scale changes to what's there. Things may be moved accordingly. We're trying to, currently, I know they're trying to work to enhance some areas that Councillor Wallace touched on, but tonight, for that process to happen and for them to go to costings, we need to endorse the schematics that we've been shown and what will be worked with. That is the whole objective of tonight. So I would speak against any amendment being made to that dot point C on those grounds, quite knowingly that there can be small changes that can be made. That is the dealing that I've had with Schools Infrastructure New South Wales, and I am very, very comfortable with those dealings. Councillor Tuckerman.
Mr Mayor, can I just seek some clarification on the definition of a coffee bar? I certainly know there's coffee bars in our community that provide quite a substantial amount of food and sustenance, not just coffee. It doesn't have to be a commercial kitchen to be able to do that, and I would just recommend to Councillor Flannery that probably could be the case in regards to the definition around a coffee bar for this facility, and I believe that voting against this recommendation just because of that fact is not showing a great deal of foresight, I would suggest.
I just might mention that at the last steering committee, Councillor Flannery raised the same question, and it was answered by the project director in the affirmative that there would be more than just a coffee bar there that particular night. I don't know whether Councillor Flannery is alluding to served meals on a plate, but it was clearly indicated there was going to be sandwiches and that type of thing available at that coffee bar. I'm not too sure if that's what it was.
Having used a lot of libraries around the state...
I'll back up to some processes. I'm sorry, Councillor Flannery, I'll just get back to process on this item. I had speakers against and for and against. I was up to a speaker against the recommendation. If there's no other speakers against, Councillor Stadmiller would like to speak against the recommendation.
I'll speak against the recommendation. I concur with nearly everything that Councillor Walker said, so we might have to go to our own planet. No offence, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Walker and I see eye to eye on a number of issues here. I won't rehash what Councillor Walker said. There's been issues with the process involved around this. There's been a number of name changes. There's no provision in the Local Government Act that requires Council to provide any sort of funding to education, especially primary school or high school education, and I will not be supporting it on that ground and a number of other grounds. That is the main reason why I will not be supporting a community library which is designed for the community to go on Department of Education lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Speaker against. So, having leniency for speakers against, is there any other one? Councillor would like to speak for the recommendation.
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Armstrong.
I'd like to speak for the proposal. I'd like to preface these remarks with advising of my concerns about access and equity, particularly when it comes to the ageing population. And certainly I believe that there are, even though this isn't a done deal, I accept that, I believe that there needs to be some greater investigation undertaken to ensure that there is equity in access for all of the population. It's fantastic for the schools, and I commend the school captain for coming along and speaking to council. I agree wholeheartedly that it is going to be a fantastic asset, not just to Young, but to the whole of Hilltops and indeed southern New South Wales. I am concerned about the people who are not at school, who have been at school 50 or 70 years ago, and that still want to use the facility. I'm concerned about how they will get there, the distance they'll need to move themselves to get there, and how they'll get home again. I do accept that at the location of the current library, nothing has changed. Nothing is any different. People still have to get themselves there. They have to get themselves back home again. So it isn't necessarily a problem of the geographical location. It's a problem of what services are going to be available to ensure that there is equity in terms of access. Having said that, it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. In a previous life, I was involved in investigations for relocation or expansion of the library, and this opportunity could never have been dreamt of by the former Young Shire Council. It is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I think that if we don't take it up, then we are not doing the right thing by our community. But we have to ensure that all of the community is able to access this fantastic facility.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a point of order? We've had 2 for and
we've
actually had 3 for and 2 against.
And I can put any motion after 2 further ones. I've allowed some leniency.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether we're in the committee of the whole. That's all.
No, we're not.
Thank you.
I call for a speaker against, and I'll let another speaker for, giving consideration to how long this matter has been dealt with by council and the interest that councillors have shown in it. So I would trust you would allow me that leniency to let the councillors have their speak, whether it be for or against. That was all.
I'm happy to move into the committee of the whole if that's necessary.
I think all councillors just about spoke. I'm going to give the mover the right of reply.
Can I just ask one question, please, Mr. Mayor? In regards to the current library in Young, it's actually on Crown lands, isn't it?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Speaker against? No more speakers against. Councillor Rolls would like to speak.
We move into committee because I know that Councillor Rolls would like to speak, and I
was just about to give Councillor Rolls that opportunity without moving into committee. I don't think we need to move into committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, I've had the councillor asked to move into committee and a seconder. All those in favour of moving into committee? 1, 2, 3, 4. That is lost. Thank you. Back to process. Councillor Rolls, would you like to speak for or against?
Mr Mayor, my comment to Councillor Armstrong was slightly facetious in that I think everyone knows that I am totally for this project, have been from the beginning, and certainly with my involvement in the committees and with the Country University Centre as well, and with all sectors of the community. So I would endorse wholly this project, and I feel that a lot of the things that we're talking about are details which will, as the facility is used, will be overcome, because we'll have a settling in period where we'll find how it works, and we'll also adapt and change the working plans so that the whole thing will work for our community. And I would also like to say that we can make it work. It's up to us. We can decide whether it's going to work, or we can decide if it's not going to work. And I'm certainly on the side that says that we will make it work.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls. That leaves me with the right of reply to Councillor O'Connor to sum it all up.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I guess I'd sum it up as we're born, we live and we die. We choose how we want to live, and we don't actually get a lot of choice in the other two. Now, we're looking at a facility that gives every person in all our communities the option to take from it what they want to do, what they want to give. It also gives council an opportunity to be in a real leadership role where we can say, look, we're providing a resource for 17,000 people, nearly 18 or however many we've got, 18,000 people. It broadens the perspective of every person who chooses to be part of it in a positive way. So, we can be negative. That's easy. It's really easy to be a knocker. Or we can say, you know what, there'll be problems, we'll face them, we'll surmount them, and we'll give the community something that we would never, as Councillor Armstrong said before, we would never have dreamt of being able to provide. Now, if you want to be a knocker, knock yourself out. You're still going to die. I choose to be positive. There will be problems. I will face them. I will take responsibility for them. And I think if we all take that attitude, we're going to have something really fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. I've probably made enough comments earlier on. Everyone's pretty well aware of the time and resources that myself and Councillor Tuckman have spent with these committees and meetings with Schools Infrastructure New South Wales, who were kind enough to make their presence. They're here amongst us tonight, and I thank Claire and Marty for being present and showing their concern and their interest in making this project go ahead and work smoothly. The last few representations I've had with Schools Infrastructure New South Wales have been very positive. On that note, councillors, there's been enough speaking for and against the recommendation. I put the recommendation. All those in favour? Aye. Aye. That is carried. Against? Note that Councillor Walker and Councillor Stadmiller are against that project. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to... We move on to item 19154, Stronger Community Fund Project Updates. More money. Councillors, the report's and recommendation there. We got some questions in regard to that report, or moved by Councillor Horton.
Seconded with a question, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded Councillor Tony Wallace with a question.
Yep. My question through Mr. Mayor to the relevant director is in relation to the Chinese tribute garden project. It states there that there's $300,000 allocation. That, in my understanding, was correct initially, but there's a whole lot more money that should be appearing as well, which doesn't appear anywhere else. I'm also concerned that in the comments section on the right-hand side, It talks about procurement for stage 1 of the works is likely to commence in July 2019. What is that? It hasn't come before council. And where is this project at, and where's the rest of the money?
Through the chair, I just asked the Director of Infrastructure Services.
I can speak to the fact that it hasn't been to council. There was it was presented in a workshop scenario one night. There was some plans shown there. There was nothing ever been in front of council. As for the $800,000 that you're referring to that I asked about at the last meeting, I'll let someone else answer that now, please.
Through the chair, you have actually 2 years of funding, so subsequently the project's actually giving an update on this year's funding.
Sorry, I didn't understand any of that.
You have 2 rounds of funding, and this project's actually giving an update on this year's round of funding. Would the Director like to give any more detail in the background of that? Look, happy to take that on notice and provide all that detail back to you.
And what is the stage 1 that's about to start in July? It hasn't been before council. What's that? The project officer, that, to my understanding, that showed the paperwork to that workshop that night, whoever was there, was Matt, who's off at the moment. So whether he's the only one who's got an understanding of what those designs are, and there are designs because it was shown to the delegation from LANZHOU, that was shown to them. It just hasn't been to council. I have asked for those to be produced to me before I head off on my journey on Friday to take to our sister city in relation to that, so I can speak to that. My concern is with Councillor Wallace as to where is that $800,000 shown. It is not shown anywhere that I can find. I'm not saying I've missed it, but I can't find it. So I would ask staff, and I've asked at the last meeting in regard, where is that $800,000 out of round 2 of the Stronger Country Community grants shown? So staff are going to take that on notice, I take it?
Certainly we'll take that on notice and
so
back to you.
The comment in relation to commencing in July is obviously not accurate if it hasn't been to council, I assume.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Any other questions?
Mr Mayor, in relation to the Murrell Creek beautification and connectivity, I 2 meetings ago asked for a report on this project, noting that we're meant to start some sort of work by July, is my understanding. There seems to be no report, and there's very little detail in this report itself. So could the Director please advise us where this project's up to, including the playground facility?
Councillors, in terms of the beautification works, we are doing some work on the flood impacts there. The current designs are causing us a little concern in terms of raising flood levels. Whether we can keep things above the flood level or not. So I'm getting more work done on that. But I will have a report back to you next meeting in terms of what we can do and can't do for the $100,000 that's there, and that will certainly include the issue with regard to the playground as well.
Councillor Flannery.
Mr Mayor, look, I was part of the group that was overseeing the project, I guess. We really haven't met for a while, but a design has been presented to us which I think costs $3.4 million. At best we've got, after consultants' fees are taken out, $800,000. From my reading of the last report we received, we were going to get not more than 2/3 of stage 1 done. So with significant concerns that the money that was left would be used to pull out the existing poplars and some willows and some creek remediation, the community would look and say, so what happened? And there really isn't a lot of hope of getting grant. To be told that having a strategic plan or a stage 3, 4, 5 to gazillion so that you could put in for grant fundings, in this instance I think it really defies belief. So we need to know how much money is available, what it can be spent on, and what is going to be left. It was a pretty simple request that I made when I asked for a report on it. And all I can see is nothing.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. So staff are well aware that with these projects and these updates, we probably need more than a couple of one-liners that don't tell us a lot about them. So, any other further questions?
Will we get a report at the next month's meeting?
Through the Chair, I believe the Director of Infrastructure Services has agreed to that. Certainly I know that the designers have been working with our engineers in relation to that.
Thank you. Any other questions in regard to that item, councillors?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I think the question has been asked before, but I note that we receive notification that there's a percentage of the project budget expended, and I refer to things like the Harden Golf Course irrigation, bronzing, Builder Bastard, and a number of other projects there. Was there any chance of getting an indicator of the percentage of the project completed rather than expended? Because fully expended and incomplete seems to be a bit of a risk that we face with some of these.
Through the Chair, could you just, you would like that detailed in?
Percentage completion.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Through the Chair, I have actually checked my emails. I do have an update for you in relation to the Mirramboola Creek, and I'll forward that to councillors.
Thank you. Any other questions to that report, Councillor Rolls?
Mr Mayor, I'm not sure if it's... I'm just slightly concerned about the $10,000 that was given to Moringo, or Moringo received for their play equipment, and... pardon me, Councillor Armstrong has just pointed it out to me.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Okay.
Okay.
Through you, Mr Mayor. I am going to meet the residents of the representatives from Moringo. I think it's Friday or next Tuesday, but I'm certainly arranged a meeting with them to talk about where that playground equipment will go.
Thank you, Director. Yes, I was just in discussion with some members before, and concerns were raised about where it was up to. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If there's not to that report, I'll put that item. All those in favour? Again? Take that unanimous. Councillor Rolls, you were voting in the affirmative. Councillor Rolls, you voted in the affirmative then? Yes. Thank you. I think you've been distracted by your partner. Item 19155 is the cash and investment report.
Would the Mayor like to rephrase it?
Yes, I didn't know the relationship between council.
I feel a point of order coming here somewhere before I call a point of order. Item 19155, cash and investment report. That's there in front of us, councillors.
Question?
Question, Councillor Armstrong.
I noticed from the list of cash in various documents provided to us that we have some shares in the Southern Phone Company. I'm just wondering why that share capital is not shown in this report, given that it in past years it's returned a substantial dividend for the $2 share.
Through the Chair, I've certainly deferred to our financial team, but I think it's because it's the value, the $2 value, isn't it? Anyway, Trevor, if you'd like to respond.
No, I don't think there's any need for the mic, Trevor. There you go.
To you, Mr Mayor, the issue with this is that at the moment the shares are not they're not declaring their dividend for the next 2 years, and that's to raise internal capital for expansion within the organisation. The other thing I'll say about that is that in this financial year we are required to revalue those shares, and so the actual, I've had a quick look at those, and I think the valuation of those shares based on the actuarial that's been done that we've now got to bring to account will be around 150,000 in the first year and something like 130,000 in the second year. So that'll actually come on as an increase in our net equity and will be part of the 2019 financial statement preparation.
Thank you for that information, but still didn't answer the question. Why don't we show them that? In the previous 2 years, it's returned almost $80,000. for $2. That's not a bad interest rate by me. If I can get on for a couple of $100,000, I'll be pretty happy.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I thought my answer to the question was there's no dividend being declared. So they're not declaring a dividend for the next 2 years.
I accept that, but I'm just wondering why this is not shown in this report. Surely then there would be zero.
So
we would show $2 and we would show zero income from it, wouldn't we not?
Correct.
I'm wondering why, Mr. General Manager, that it's not shown.
Through the Chair, it's really...
It's been a rounding issue, and because of the valuation they said, we should show it in the report.
Okay.
I take it that staff will rectify that matter.
I also notice that there's no declaration that the investment's made in accordance with the Minister's order. I believe that's a prerequisite.
Were you wanting a response to that, Councillor Armstrong, or just a comment in a statement? Thank you. I take that it's been taken on board.
Through the Chair, would you like us to amend the recommendation?
I'd like to ensure that in future that the certification is attached.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Any other comments or questions? I haven't got a mover and a seconder for the report, for the recommendation yet, actually. Councillor Wallace, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Rolls, thank you. No more questions or debate. I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Note Councillor Armstrong against, please. Item 19156, a quarterly budget review, which was handed in a separate documentation. Councillors? It's there. The recommendation is there.
I'll move the motion.
Moved by Councillor Horton, seconded by Councillor O'Connor.
Can I make just a remark?
Question? Statement?
No, just a statement. I'd like to commend the staff. This is an excellent quarterly budget review and obviously has involved many, many hours of work and it's easy to read. It actually makes sense. So thank you.
Question, Mr Mayor?
Question, Councillor Tuckerman.
I'd just like to question what happened to the Men's Health Day funds, which totalled about $8,500 odd. That money was raised from the community. It was a Men's Health Day, and they don't appear to be in the reserve balances.
Through the Chair, I'll take that on notice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. Any other questions in regard to that report?
Question.
Councillor Armstrong.
I refer back to the reconciliation of cash and investments provided to us by the General Manager earlier this year, and note that the internal restrictions for the young stormwater infrastructure renewal were opening balance 125,887. Can someone please advise me where that 125,887 from the original reconciliation is included in the external restrictions shown in the QBR?
Through the Chair. Through the Chair, I'd just like to ask Trevor Drowley to respond to that.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, Councillor Armstrong, at the moment the original balance brought forward for this year was about 125,000. There was income raised through rates of about through the stormwater levy of some 98,000, and we've had about 87,000, almost 88,000 expended. So there's actually $135,000 sitting in the reserve at the end of the year. It's included in the infrastructure consolidation, and as part of this process that we've been developing this budget review, some of those reserves have been consolidated. We're breaking those up at the moment, so the next time we publish this, we'll break up those reserves further, and the drainage reserve will be shown as a separate item.
So just let me get this right, it's included in the external reserve stormwater infrastructure renewal account, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Through you, Mayor. We'll be doing an update to those reserves at the end of the financial year as well. So there is still movement on those reserves at the moment in the structuring of the Tech 1 budget review document, and so there'll be a full explanation of those reserves at the end of the year as well, and they will be broken up in a lot more detail than we're able to do today.
I have a question. It's in regard to the same area, actually. It's the very same thing on here. It's got 241,000. Been $159,000 expended on their stormwater infrastructure out of money that was raised by the $25 levy on the residents of Young. First question is, where was that expended? And the balance that's got here is $81,785. I'm concerned, and I know early on I asked some questions in regard to this, and as you alluded to, it raises about $98,000 to $100,000 a year. It's been in operation for 6 years. It was created to do stormwater works to stop the CBD in the town of Young from being flooded. How disappointing do you think it is for me to sit here and look at a balance of $81,766 after this time in that fund, and very little work's been done on the project that it was set aside to be done? I understand that the finance team have been rolling and movements there too, but at the next meeting, as you alluded to, there's going to be breakdowns and explanations as to where this money has been spent and where it has gone to, and I will be keeping a very close eye on that on behalf of every ratepayer that's been paying that $25 levy for 6 years. When that was introduced, we told our community that that's what that money was for, and that's where it would be expended and done. Our community deserves to us to make sure that we put in practice what we say. Thank you. Anyone else got any comments in regard to the quarterly budget review?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor
Couple. First one is the staggering amount spent on consultants, and to that, I wonder why our budgeted amount was so significantly different to the expected amount. So could someone speak to that firstly, and then I've got another question.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I'd just like to ask Trevor Drowley to speak to that. But clearly, certainly including in those figures are, contract, also consultancy contract staff. And what we do understand over the last year is that we have actually spent a significant amount of money on those contract staff, which may not have been first budgeted for, and that was certainly in the area of some $600,000, and so that is certainly a large part of that figure. What I can do in relation to those figures is give you, I can't share a transactional list, but I can certainly group that in more detail for you.
Second question, Councillor.
Yeah, just in relation to the reserves, and I know this was something that was raised in previous council incarnations, but it's in relation to the reserve for employee leave entitlements. I note that the Bora employee leave entitlements are in the order of double of those of Harden, and I don't imagine the workforces were that much different in size. Do we need to have this much money sitting aside for employee leave entitlements? And if there's so much difference in those two, couldn't we accord the latter and then maybe reduce Young's as well?
Look, through the chair, I'll get Trevor Drowley to give an outline of just how those how that expenditure is detailed. We have two aspects of this. We have the expenditure detail, and we also have provisions. Thank you.
Okay, there. In relation to the leave liability, we bring to account the full leave liability in the ELE provisions within the expense side of the operation of the operational budget, and then we have the amount that's set aside in reserves to fund those liabilities as they fall due. and I take it that it's the reserve that you were talking about, Councillor Wallace. In the previous, there's a requirement for council to maintain 20% of its leave liability in a reserve to provide cash flow to meet those liabilities as and when they fall due. In the case of Young and in the case of FORSYTHE, at the time of the merger, they basically funded 100% of that leave liability at that time. HARDEN funded it was about, going from memory, I think it was about 25-26%. So the reserves have stayed pretty much at that point because we're not required to put any additional funding into them. It's a matter for council to review its reserves policy, and it could make a decision in relation to funding that at, as long as it does it to the statutory level of a minimum of 20%. But at the same time, the reason we haven't done this at this point in time is because that full leave liability was provided by those councils at the time of the merger. And so at this stage, we're just gradually letting that reserve come back closer towards the 20%. But it's a matter for council to decide the level at which that funding needs to be set.
Councillor Wallace.
I'd just like, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to see a report come to council on those figures in terms of what percentage of the coverage they are at the moment. And as has previously been stated, I think this money could be better spent. There's got a lot of money sitting in the bank doing nothing, and we don't need to.
Look, through the chair, as Trevor has outlined, is we work to the Australian accounting standard, so we need to meet that. That is the reserve balance is sitting at 20%. We're currently holding about 60%, so we do cash up those, and certainly council can review that, and certainly indeed release that. In relation to fully expending the items in relation to our profit and loss, we need to certainly make sure that all of our figures are fully detailed, if that makes sense.
No.
Yeah. So look, the answer to the question is that those reserves are currently sitting at about 60%. The minimum level is 20%, so there is certainly some scope for review.
It's about being smarter with what we've got, Councillor Wallace, I agree. Councillor Flannery.
Mr Mayor, could the Director or perhaps Mr Drowley advise us on some of the Section 94 funds? In particular, I note that Sabelco, I've just lost it now, is showing a balance below what would be expected. I'm sorry, I've lost some of my reserves, but I was wanting to know there's development under listed. Sorry, can I just item 102 lists developer contribution reserve Section 94 Harden as 221,000. Could we get a bit more detail on what that is? But it says that we've received 10,000, so less than 5% of that money. But it goes on to say we've got a closing balance of 231. So is there a rear? Can we get some explanations on some of these things? Why Low Living Soils zero balance? There's a number that have zero balances that I would have thought should have higher balances.
Look, through the chair, yes, Trevor.
Again, for you there. Basically, at this stage, a number of those reserves have been consolidated into under the banner of the Section 94 reserves. As I mentioned earlier, we're still breaking those up further. We are tracking them separately, but they weren't reported in this budget review. They've been reported at a consolidated level. In terms of, in the developer contribution to the Harden, you'll see a balance in there of 463,000. That's actually a consolidated figure. Now, in relation to that, we've only brought to account basically the funds that have been received to date. They have not included any accrual, which will be picked up at the end of the year and be adjusted into those reserves. So we've still got additional funds to come in and they will probably still be received up until about February, until about August of this financial year. And that will form part of what we report to you as the reserve balances at the end of the financial year.
Mr Mayor, could I, if we're going to get a revised report or in the financial year report, could I request that we have an extra column added so that we have an opening balance forecast income, so that, I guess this relates where we've got a levy on, say, the sewer fund, so we have forecast income, amount received, expended, closing balance, so where we're either missing contributions or income is below, we're aware of what the position is and should be.
Thank you for that. Any other questions in regard to that report? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again? Councillor Stadmiller. Councillor Stadmiller.
Aye.
Were you for or against the recommendation?
Yes, for that.
Thank you. As I indicated earlier, Councillor, we have to have all votes recorded. I would appreciate the use of your hand in the air to acknowledge the votes. Thank you. Item 19, 157, Development Applications Statistics for May 2019. The report's there, Councillors, and the recommendations there. Moved Councillor Walker. Seconded Councillor Flannery.
Question?
Question Councillor Stadmiller.
I may be missing something, but it's the first business paper I've seen. We don't actually have the name of the applicant and some more details.
Through the chair, I'll take that on notice and circulate that.
Thank you for that. I would suggest that the recommendation is as it is, and that's all we can deal with that's in front of us. And I've had a mover and a seconder for it. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again, Councillor Stadmiller is against. Thank you. Negative. And yes, the attachment, as you mentioned, Councillor Stadmiller, is nowhere to be found in any documentation. Item 19158, acquisition of land for road widening purposes. There's a small report there, councillors, and a recommendation. Moved Councillor Horton. Seconded Councillor Flannery. No questions or discussion?
Question?
Question, Councillor Armstrong.
The report has financial implications totalling $2,500. I'm just wondering whether the plan of survey that's provided here, do we need to get another plan of survey, or can we rely upon this this particular plan?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, the plan of survey was done by council. I believe that the $2,500 there was pretty much included the cost of the survey. We don't believe the land will cost very much, but that will be subject to a future report to council and just come back to council in terms of the final cost.
Councillor Tuckerman may be able to provide some historical knowledge here.
No, I can't, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to actually get some information from the Director, a little bit more of an explanation as to how this come about and any information they can provide going forward. Is it because, if I can understand, that the person wanted to do a DA and this was found to be the case?
I understand that they were investigating other options for their land. When the path was built, they apparently followed, or the council at the time apparently followed the fence line. I understand now that the owner of the land wishes to do other things and just formalise this. The other part of that is that that section of land is still in the ownership. It's the subdivision, I understand, is there, and that's still the ownership. So we're still trying to sort through that a little bit, but we just need to formalise all of those issues that we're talking about now. but we do need to buy that section of land to turn it into public roads so that we can legally have a footpath there.
Thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to move in a seconder for the recommendation. All those in favour? Again? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 19.159, result of public consultation draft Crown Roads policy. Sorry. The reports there, councillors, recommendations there. Any? I'm in your hands. Move, Councillor Horton. Seconded, Councillor O'Connor. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, it notes a few minor changes, but I couldn't pick them up. The Director could please advise.
I'll pass that to the Director of Infrastructure.
Councillors, when I drafted this report, there was a couple of minor changes that I was planning, but as I finalised the report, there was none, and I didn't change that part of the recommendation. So my apologies for that. It is just adopt the draft as is.
Okay. Thank you for that. So can that recommendation be adjusted on the board? It's done, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Any other questions in regard to that? And I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again? Item 19.160. Blackguard Gully Stage 1 delivery. There's a report there, councillors, and some recommendation there, and I'm in your hands.
Yes, I'll move it, Mr Mayor, but I have some questions.
Move, Councillor Flannery, thank you.
Wallace?
Sorry.
Not much here, I've got Wallace.
I got the distinct feeling from Councillor Wallace that he didn't want to be reflected as Councillor Flannery, and there we go.
Second, Mr Mayor.
I'm sorry, Councillor Tuckerman, thank you. I apologise to all. Don't know where that came from.
So the question is through you, Mr Mayor. Why was the one tender that was submitted non-conforming, and what was the opinion of the Director as to why there weren't more tenders made?
I can answer the second part of the question first, in that the area, because it was a design and construct tender, the tenderers that were spoken to decided it was just too hard to do design and just too hard for them to get a realistic feel for the costs. In terms of the one that was non-conforming, it just had too many restrictions around their tender for us to be comfortable that we could actually accept it.
Question for the Director. Given the workload that we are likely to have this year with significant amount of capital works expenditure, do we have the staff capable of carrying this out?
To the Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor. It is one of those many projects that we're doing, and I'll certainly balance the staff that we have and the contractors that we use, but in this case I feel we would get a better result if we use council staff for that, and potentially some of the other jobs, and certainly that would be more rewarding for our staff in terms of the our parks and gardens and staff, in terms of those significant roles, and we may well put some other more or less technical projects and hand them out to contractors.
Yeah, dare I say it, I have some concerns about it, all right. We've spent over $100,000 and haven't really got anywhere yet, and they're telling us they can't get anything done for the 400 that's left. I do have some concerns about it, so I hope sincerely that we can do it in-house. Having said that, I had a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Stadmiller is against, in the negative. Thank you. Item 19.161, Hilltops Works Report. It's there, councillors. I'm in your hands. Firstly, do I have a mover and a seconder of the matter? Moved, Councillor O'Connor. Seconded, Councillor Horton. Thank you. Any questions in regard, Councillor Flannery?
Mr Mayor, just I think I certainly received an email this afternoon regarding a meeting I attended last week for weeds, and there were significant concerns raised at that meeting about what the weeds program is. I informed those at the meeting that we do have an advisory committee. I said we haven't met yet, so we haven't done much advising. Today I received an email. I did inform the meeting of the sort of processes, and it was two very good speakers there from LLS, or representatives, with view to the very limited notation that we get here on weed control. I'd actually like to move as a Part B, it's got receive and note the information, and I'd like to recommend that the advisory body be set up as a 355 committee of council, and that the director take the necessary steps to establish that committee.
So dot point B is to set it up as a 355 committee. The advisory group be set up as a 355 committee? Yep. I received that email this afternoon. I must have. That came from that body. That. Yep. Okay.
We're setting up an advisory committee for ourselves as a section 355.
Yes.
Well, yep.
So, Tony, that would be open to other people in the public?
I assume that would come back to the next council meeting for nominations from the community and council reps.
Through the chair, it's just that if council votes to have a section 355 committee, you can do that. However, if it is an advisory committee to council, you do not need to separate that governance. You can have an advisory committee without it being a section 355. There are many different types of committees that are at council's disposal.
My recommendation is for it to be a 355 committee, which would include community and council representatives.
Through the chair, any advisory committee can contain membership that council so desires. A section 355 committee has specific delegations under the Act.
That would be very good.
Thank you for that advice. Yep. The mover and the second are happy with the dot point B. They are. So it's up there, councillors. Is there any other comments in regard to that report? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Aye. Against? It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 19.162 is the action summary report. The same thing. Can I have a mover and a seconder to start with, please? Councillor Horton. Seconded, Councillor Walker. Thank you. Any questions or comments in regard to that report, councillors?
Mr Mayor, in the minutes of the, I think it was the Gaylong Progress Association previously, and there's an action report. Could the director advise us where, and I did miss the meeting last week, the Gaylong community, the fencing is up to with respect to the community park area?
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. There was some confusion as to who was delivering that. The advice to myself at that stage was that the committee was going to deliver that. I've since been advised that that's not the case, and I've instructed my staff to move full steam ahead with getting that delivered as soon as possible. They're out getting prices at the moment, and I'll be able to give council some time frames, but I would expect within the next month for it to be completed.
Thank you for that. Any other questions in regard to that report? If not, I'll put that report. All those in favour? Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. I think I've skipped any. Come to correspondence for attention. The recommendation note, the media releases and dates of releases, etc. Councillors, do I have a move and a second for that recommendation? Councillor Horton. Seconded, Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. All those in favour? Again, it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Section 355 committee reports requiring action. There's one there from the Wellbeing Group, and the recommendation is Council reconvene meetings between the Mayor and General Manager with representatives of Murrumbidgee Local Health District, Health Services in the Hilltops local government area to discuss issues relevant to both parties. Pretty straightforward, I would think, pretty easy to understand, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. Seconded, Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour? Again, that's unanimous, thank you. I turn the page to my next note, which is Regional Tourism Committee seeking nominations 19164. Moved by Councillor O'Connor, seconded by Councillor Horton. Big night, Councillor Horton. The report is there, and the recommendation is to advertise for nominations of membership to the Regional Tourism Committee. I have a move.
Just add something to that sentence, please.
An amendment for...
Well, no, not an amendment. Oh, well, yeah, I guess it is. Just advertise for nomination of membership of people who can actually commit. We have members, and there are some members we have never seen. I
understand your intent, but I don't know whether... yeah. I understand your intent, Councillor, and your frustration with that, but it's probably not appropriate to put it in there as such. But
we actually haven't been able to have a meeting this year due to lack of quorum, so we might have one meeting.
That's a concern. It is.
No.
Okay, well, so we're going to go advertise it and throw it and see how we go again. Okay, yeah. All right. Okay, councillors, I've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Again, it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 165, requiring no action. 355 committee reports. I have a mover and a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Wallace. Thank you. Question, Councillor Armstrong.
Last month I asked the General Manager in regard to a question in regard to TPAR reporting. She put that on notice. I haven't had any response back in regards to the TPAR reporting requirements for Section 355 committee. How does Council meet its TPAR reporting requirements through Section 355 committees?
Through the Chair, I didn't record it as such, but I certainly will take that on notice and make sure I get a report to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Councillor Armstrong, would you explain what's TPAR mean?
The taxation, Department of Taxation has reporting requirements for councils to provide details of all payments made by councils in a financial year, effectively so as they can then carry on their business. Since the Local Government Act is very clear, Section 355 committees, any funds held by those committees are council's funds. If those committees make a payment, then that payment that's made should be reported by council as part of its TPAR reporting. If it's not, council's
just one moment, please, councillors. Deirdre, Councillor Stadmiller, can we leave that to whatever's happening till we finish discussing business, or it's very disrupting to everyone? Councillor Stadmiller's leaving the meeting at 7:30. Thank you for your attendance, councillor.
So through the Chair, as Section 355 committees, you can pass on delegations, and indeed if we pass on a budgetary delegation as part of that, there's a expenditure and income and expenditure process there that the councillor is discussing. The majority of our Section 355s do not have financial delegation. However, we do have certainly one Section 355 committee that certainly needs some review.
Mr Mayor, a question. It relates to a matter I brought up 1 month ago. At that time, in relation to the Tourism Committee, the Arts Committee, the Environmental Initiatives Committee and the Library Committee, and Councillor O'Connor's explained the Tourism Committee, and I believe that in the last 6 months there have been no meetings of any of those other committees and no agendas, and apart from there's one Arts Committee meeting, I believe, and that was it.
Through the Chair, I do believe so. In relation to the Arts Committee, it hasn't also failed to obtain a quorum.
And the Environmental Initiatives Committee? Can we please
Through the
get...
Chair, I'll take that. I'll double check that those agenda and minutes are there.
Yeah, because Councillor Armstrong brought up council's getting agendas to all these meetings many times previously as well, so if we could get all that, that'd be good. Thank you.
So I'll take it that's noted tonight, staff, and they will be provided. Thank you. So having that done, we had a mover and a seconder for that report. I'll put that report, the recommendation. All those in favour? Glenn, it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes me to 19-166, the Local Traffic Advisory Committee minutes. And the recommendation is that council endorse the minutes from the Hilltops Council Local Traffic Advisory Committee. Moved Councillor Walker. Seconded Councillor Horton. Thank you.
Question, Mr Mayor.
Question, Councillor Flannery.
I note the Harden Kite Festival is not listed anywhere, and given the considerable traffic issues that were encountered last year at the Kite Festival, I would have thought that it would be prudent to include Kite Festival representatives as part of the Local Advisory Committee. I also did note at a previous council meeting that former Director Finesse was a valuable go-between between the Kite Festival, who are three ladies with not much support, and they would appreciate direct lines to a director given the problems they had last year. But if they were to be included in this advisory committee, it might be very helpful.
Through the Chair, I'll just talk to the Director of Infrastructure, just in relation to the Local Traffic Advisory Committee. I don't believe they would be eligible as a member.
Through you, Mr Chair. The Traffic Advisory, or the Traffic Committee, is set up as a delegation from RMS. Voting members on that are the police, council, state members. Council can have then, well, a couple of other observers. Sorry, I forgot the RMS as being a member, voting member as well. The committee will sometimes invite people along to discuss particular matters. Certainly, the issue of the Kite Festival has come up, and the traffic issues around there, and we're working with RMS to identify other solutions there with that.
I'm aware that I think Councillor Horton is on the Harden Kite Festival.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I am on that committee, and as our director's just pointed out, it was brought up at the last traffic meeting in Young. It's been actioned. As of the first meeting after the Kite Festival last year, we've been working on traffic control, having another access, Barbara Street continuing down to go in there, and better having professionals direct the traffic as opposed to just ordinary guys that are not all that familiar with it. A very interesting point came up at the traffic meeting, John, the other day up there, and that was by the police sergeant that was there. He said that the biggest problem he believed was the collecting the coins as the traffic went in, and that makes a lot of sense. They're slowing them down to get the coins, and whereas he said if we get them in and maybe pay their money as they went through the gate walking or whatever. But he said that was the biggest problem for the traffic. But it's being addressed, and I think this year I feel 100% confident it'll be fine.
Thank you for that, yeah. The problem was collecting, there was two lines coming in and they were taking them to one line. That's the problem. But anyway, okay.
As long as it's on the agenda and a traffic management plan is
In place, yeah.
Yes.
That's right. Thank you for that. Okay, having said that, I've had it moved and seconded. All those in favour? Against? Thank you, that's unanimous. That takes me through to the end of our open meeting, I believe. Those are the last minutes there. Would someone like to move that council move into closed? Councillor O'Connor, thank you. Seconded Councillor Wallace, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. We will now move into closed, council.